Susan, your first story isn't good news for a country that relies on just that, the primary sector.
It certainly isn't, Sally. Stats New Zealand has just released some new figures, and it's actually showing that the value of our annual goods exports fell. They fell $3.3 billion to just under $69 billion in the year ended December, and that's a 4.5% drop. The reason, I guess it's no surprise, we've heard this all the time, soft demand in that key market of China. Jason Attewell is General Manager of Economic and Environment Insights.
Meat exports were down $1 billion compared to the previous year, down $1 billion to $8.8 billion. Dairy products were down $1 billion as well to $19.4 billion. And log exports were down about $500 million to $4.7 billion. So there's absolutely been a price impact on the falls there. So dairy products, the prices have been falling. So we actually exported more but got less for it. And very similar with meat as well.
And sticking briefly, Sally, with the export news, ongoing tensions with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They're attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. That's having a big flow-on effect to anyone using that waterway. And for New Zealand, it's making it more expensive to get our onions into Europe. The harvest here, it's in full swing. The yields are looking really good, but the ships are having to avoid the Suez Canal, so they're going around Africa or through the Panama Canal. And that is adding $2 a bag for every bag of onions that lands in Europe. So a little bit costly there. And Onions New Zealand is hoping to export 70,000 tonnes of onions there this year.
And that extra cost will certainly add up for our exporters. Now, what's happening with illegal plantings of New Zealand-bred apples in China?
This is really interesting, Sally, because we've heard plenty, haven't we, over the past 9 or so years about the thousands of hectares of unauthorised plantings of gold kiwi fruit there. And that's had Zespri scrambling to halt the spread and to protect its intellectual property. But yes, this time it's apples, and the New Zealand company Enza Fruit, it's won a legal action against illegal plantings of its Envy apple variety there. Now, the fruit is actually grown legitimately in China with Enza Fruit's partner Joy Wing Mao, but these others have been growing it without permission. And the victory in the Gansu Province Court awarded Enza Fruit its full claim for significant damages. And Enza Fruit's Morgan Rogers says that this successful plant varieties judgment under China's very newly issued seed law really reinforces the importance of taking this strong action.
Great success there. Now let's talk about cows, dairy. You've had further confirmation that New Zealand is well past peak cow. What's that mean?
Well past peak cow, when we had the most cows ever. And that was actually a decade ago when it was at its peak, and they've been dropping for the past actually 11 years. We now only have 4.67 million dairy cows rather than over 6 million. And AgriHQ senior analyst Mel Crode says that it's land use changes that are behind the fall.
There's now 42,000 fewer effective hectares used for dairy farming compared to a year earlier. Virtually all regions recorded lower cow numbers, but the largest change was in the North Island, and the dairy herd was back 4% there. What we've seen in some regions, it's been a switch to dry stock farming, so exiting dairying for that. But some regions are also reporting a switch to forestry or avocado farming, particularly up through Northland. So quite a significant change within 1 year.
A quick word still with dairy and the Māori dairy company Miraka. It's based just north of Taupo. It's celebrating founding members who are stepping down as required constitutionally after 12 years of service. They've done just a sterling job. Kingi Smiler, Max Parkin and Mikey Len. They're all instrumental in forming Miraka in 2010. Here's Carl Graydon, Miraka's CEO.
All three of the members that are exiting have had just a fundamental impact and influence on the business. Miraka would not exist without the tenacity and courage and vision of Kingi Smiler, and principally Max Parkin was the one that drove our decision to become, instead of a cheese factory, actually a powder factory. So right from inception, all three of them, including Madame Lien from Vinamilk in Vietnam, have just, I guess, led us with vision more than anything else.
Miraka exports $300 million worth of dairy product, and incidentally, Sally, it's apparently the only processor in the world to be powered by renewable geothermal energy.
Very interesting that, isn't it? Now look, let's turn to the wine harvest. That's not too far away. How are things looking there?
I guess, yeah, it's still early days a little bit, but the indications for a quality wine vintage this year are looking okay. Summer's provided lots of heat, not too much rain in those key growing areas where we've got Hawke's Bay, Wairarapa, Marlborough, Central Otago. But the Chief Executive of the New Zealand Wine Growers, Philip Gregan, says that the volumes will be lower than in the past two harvests.
We've had two good-sized vintages, so I don't see that as an issue. Get bigger vintages, get smaller vintages, and this year we're going to be on the smaller side. The first concern always for grape growers and winemakers is quality. Quality's looking good at this stage. Obviously, there's still a way to go, but the outlook's positive at the moment. Sales are going well. The challenge the industry has, and it's not just been in our industry, but it's more widely, is supply chains got very long and very clogged during COVID. So in the past year, we've seen some destocking of supply chains, so that slowed exports down from New Zealand a bit.
We did speak to a grower who said that the lower volumes, for him, that's not such a bad thing because there's still a fair bit of wine left in tanks from last year's harvest.
Now, cash-strapped farmers aren't spending as much on fertiliser these days.
Indeed, they're not, and this is according to data from the Fertiliser Association of New Zealand, which is showing that there's been a drop in the use of nitrogen, phosphate and potassium each year since 2019. And the farmer-owned fertiliser co-op Ravensdown says that the reduced demand is the result of weather events, high input costs and inflation. And in fact, it's led to them having to cut its workforce last year by 18%. Here's the Chief Operating Officer, Mike Whitty.
We sort of see it as the bottom and things will improve, and looking at the dairy situation and the dairy payout, it's going in the right direction. So these are very cyclical occurrences, and we're positive about the future. It'll just take some time.
Yeah, and Susan, I guess it is a good time to double-check fertiliser use.
It certainly is, because looking at things like, say, the nitrogen component of fertiliser, that needs to actually be accounted for in these things called the freshwater farm plans that all pastoral and horticultural businesses are going to need to do over time, because it's things like the leaching of nitrogen, which is leading to poor water quality in rivers and streams. So, yeah, probably a good time for everyone just to rebalance and reset what they're doing.
Thanks, Susan. That was Susan Murray in Hamilton. Thanks for joining us with the Rural News Roundup.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.